Hello Year 4, it's Mrs Cross here with your first English lesson of the year. I'm going to start by sharing my screen with you. Okay, it is Wednesday the 6th of January 2021 and your WALT today is we are learning to listen to a story with a historical setting and retell it, rehearsing simple sentences orally. The first thing you need to do, please, is pause the video and write your date and WALT and then underline it. Right, we are starting a brand new English unit today and our unit is based on our topic, which is the Romans. First thing I want you to think about is what does it mean to retell something? When we retell something, we tell it again. So you are going to listen to a story today and then you are going to tell it again in your own words using your voice. Let me introduce you to our new writing target. Our writing target this term is to use expanded noun phrases. We'll come back to that in a moment. The first thing I want you to think about is to recap what a noun is. A noun is a word used to identify a living thing, place, physical object, action, quality, state of being, or idea. Now your first challenge then is to guess what nouns I have put under these purple boxes. Which words do you think you might find under these purple boxes? I'd like you in your books underneath your data WALT to write down 5 possible words, please. Pause the video and have a go. Right, let's see what's under the boxes. Cat, book, Cheltenham, happiness, and Jason. These are all nouns. Jason and Cheltenham are proper nouns, but we will come on to that another day. So what is an expanded noun phrase? Well, it's much simpler than the name suggests. I have written a sentence, the dog chased the ball. Hopefully you know that dog and ball are the nouns in this sentence. I have then rewritten my sentence, adding in expanded noun phrases. The big brown dog chased the colourful bouncy ball. Big brown dog and the colourful bouncy ball are our expanded noun phrases. Let's have a look at my second example. Mrs. Cross ate the pizza. Mrs. Cross and pizza are the nouns in this sentence. I have then rewritten the sentence and I've added an expanded noun phrase. Mrs. Cross ate the cheesy, delicious pizza. I'd like you to pause the video for a second and just think, what do you think an expanded noun phrase might be then? Hopefully you realised that an expanded noun phrase is where you add adjectives to a noun to add detail to your work. Now in my examples, I've added 2 adjectives to each noun. It doesn't have to be 2. You might decide to add 3 adjectives. You might only add the 1 adjective. Okay. That's an expanded noun phrase. Your next task is to identify the nouns in these sentences. Mrs. Plews was teaching in the classroom. Pause the video for a moment and decide, please, where you think the nouns are in this sentence. The nouns are Mrs. Plews and classroom. Let's look at the next one. In Cheltenham, Tia ran quickly towards the bus. Again, pause the video, please, and decide where the nouns are. We have Cheltenham, Tia, and bus. And finally, Bubble the cat sat purring contentedly whilst Mrs. Cross baked cakes. Pause the video and decide where the nouns are, please. We have got Bubble, cat, Mrs. Cross, and cakes. Right, we will come back to our target in our next English lesson. Let's move on. So in this unit, we will be focusing on a historical event of the volcano eruption at Pompeii. Have you ever heard about this event before? Perhaps you know where Pompeii is. Let's find out. Pompeii was a Roman town in southern Italy. On the 24th of August 79 AD, it was buried under volcanic ash and rock following the eruption of the volcano Mount Vesuvius. Most of the people who lived there were sadly killed. We are going to be focusing on a story this term, which is based on this tragic event. So today we're going to look at a summarised version of our story. It's called Escape from Pompeii, and it's by an author called Christina Bartlett. What do you think escape might mean? I'm sure lots of you have come across that word before. An escape is when you leave somewhere. This is the front cover of the book. Have a look. What ideas do you get about the story just by looking at the cover of the book? Pause the video and have a really good look. Okay, let's start reading the story. You've got some pictures to look at as I read. Escape from Pompeii. On a hillside overlooking the sparkling Bay of Naples, the Roman city of Pompeii glimmered in the sunlight. From his window, young Tranio listened to the humming from bars, taverns, and shops around him, and to the tradesmen haggling in the streets below. Beyond the massive city walls, he could see Pompeii's greatest protector looming in the distance. They called it Vesuvius, the gentle mountain. Could anyone feel safer than here? Tranio wondered. Was anything more beautiful? Tranio was the son of Dion, the actor, and lived with his parents near the theatre district of Pompeii. He'd often sneak to his friend Livia's house, who lived across the street. She was the baker's daughter. Liv, come and play jacks. I've got a bag of bones from Mother's kitchen. They're just the right size. Livia spent most of her time learning to weave and cook, but during the hot afternoons, she and Tranio would squat by the fountain playing knucklebones or chase dogs up the street. Then something happened. The stone steps creaked, the flats began to rattle, and the building quivered. Bread rolls fell onto the street. Everyone fell silent. Nothing to fear, someone shouted. Flushed and excited, the two children ran off hand in hand into the dusty streets. But as they ran, the sky began to darken, and a thick cloud drifted slowly overhead. A small bird hanging in a cage chirped frantically, trapped behind his bars as the air began to fill with ash. Livia coughed. Tranio, perhaps we should go back. Tranio grabbed her hand. We can't go back. The dust is too thick. Quick, the harbour, run, just run. Boats were bobbing on the choppy water as the men began to untie the moorings and ropes. No one noticed two small children climb up the narrow plank of a small Greek cargo ship and hide beneath a pile of coloured rugs. Dusty and tired, they watched in horror as the sky became thick with pumice and black ash. Tranio, I can't breathe, in the back of my throat. As she spoke, Livia started to choke. The children could hear dogs barking and people's muffled screams as they ran, gasping for air, with rags covering their mouths or pillow covering their heads, some falling to the grumbling, tumbling ground. And then, in one terrible, endless moment, they heard mighty Mount Vesuvius roar. Its top exploded in a scream and flames ripped upwards towards the sky. A massive cloud of silver ash rose to the heavens, twisting and bubbling in every direction until everything was in total darkness. Lightning flashed and thunder roared. Streams of molten liquid flowed in fast rivers down the mountain slopes and covered a nearby town. The walls, streets, and gardens of their beloved Pompeii disappeared beneath a blanket of ash and stones. Before their very eyes, everything and everyone they had ever loved was destroyed. Tranio and Livia held each other desperately as the streaming lava reached the sea itself. The water began to swell against the side of the boat as it moved out to safety. They had left just in time. I hope you enjoyed that story. It's very dramatic. How do we retell a story? Now, you've done this lots and lots of times before. We usually do this right at the beginning of our English units, and quite often we go outside. Have a think. What do we normally do? Normally, we think about the main events in the text that we want to retell, and then we use those main events to help us retell it, and we add actions to help us remember. Why do you think it's important that we tell these stories orally? That means using our voices before we write them down. Telling these stories orally is a really helpful way of making sure that your brain understands the story. It helps you to understand the structure of the story, and it really helps you to be adventurous with your vocabulary because you can try out really tricky words without having to worry about writing them down. So the next thing we need to think about then is what are the main points in the story and in what order do they happen? Now, if you're not feeling very confident, you might like to go back in the video and watch the story again. Once you think you might know what the main parts are, I want you to think, what's your favourite part and why? Now, as I said before, we're going to be telling this story orally today. We're going to use our voices. So we're not going to write the whole story down. We're going to retell the story out loud using our voices, adding actions. Now, there's some pictures on here of some actions that you could use. However, I've seen you do this several times before, and I've seen you add your own brilliant actions. So you might like to just make up your own. Our steps to success are identify the main points of the story, retell the main points of the story in your words, and add actions to your retelling. The first thing you need to do then, and the only bit of writing we are going to do today, you are going to read this shortened version of the story and you are going to write down the main points in your book. Now on the right hand side, I have made a start for you in blue. So I have written the subtitle, the main points with a colon, and I've underlined it. I've then done 3 bullet points for the first 3 main points of the story. So I've decided to write Tranio, an actor's son is in Rome, wonders at the beauty of Vesuvius. So I've written it in note format, not full sentences. That's absolutely fine. It's just to jog our memory. My next point is ask Liv, the baker's daughter, to play jacks. And the final one I have done is steps creak, flaps rattle and buildings quiver. So I've started it off for you. You are more than welcome to copy my first 3 main points. Once you've done that, you need to read the text on the left-hand side and you need to carry on writing down the main points. So pause the video, write the main points down from the section of the story you can see, and then I will scroll down and you'll be able to do the last bit of the story. Okay, now complete the last section of the story, please. Right, you are ready now to retell that story using your voice. So have a look at your main points and then start trying to tell the story out loud. Don't worry about using the exact words from the story, put it into your own words. In fact, some of you are probably going to use better vocabulary than is written in the actual story. If you've got someone at home you can tell it to, even better. Tell somebody at home the story. And then do your best to add some lovely actions. I hope you enjoyed that activity, Year 4. I imagine you'd like to know what happened when the volcano at Pompeii erupted. If you would like to know more, and I suggest you have a look, I have put a link to this BBC video into your daily planning document. So go and have a look at that link. I will see you for lesson 2 tomorrow. Goodbye.